you are an INFJ, you will definitely notice about yourself that you have a poor sense of self-identity. Sometimes you can feel like you really care about people in humanity, but then other times you feel so drained being in social situations, and people can be painstakingly idiotic. Sometimes you can feel like your personality is very warm and personable and it's easy to get to know you, but then other times you feel like you can be really stiff and socially awkward. Sometimes you feel like you can be very logical and analytical, and then other times that you have this strong sense of self-conviction and you just have to go with the gut feeling that's tugging at your heart, even though your head is telling you a different thing. The INFJ is a walking, talking paradox. So today I'm going to be talking about where our paradoxical personality comes from, and then in part 2 of this video I will list the traits for which the INFJ is paradoxical, how we are one thing but also a little bit of another thing. So today's video will be a little bit more technical, and we will be talking about where our paradoxical personality comes from with regards to our cognitive functions. If you don't want to listen to all of the technical explanations, then you could just look out for or skip to part 2 of this video. No hard feelings. So what do I mean when I say paradoxical? I mean that INFJs have a lot of characteristics that tend to contradict one another, or their characteristics are not all one way, but also not all the other way. So earlier I mentioned that INFJs can come across as very extroverted, but then at their core they are true introverts. I mentioned that INFJs can be very logical, but then on the flip side, they also have a very strong sense of self-conviction and have a high moral standard. So right now you're probably thinking, isn't that true of everyone? While it is true that all personality characteristics fall on a spectrum, like no one is 100% extroverted, no one is 100% introverted, no one is 100% logical or rational, and they have zero ability to process emotions or values. While that is true, most people usually have a rough idea of where they fall on a spectrum with personality characteristics. When prompted, most people would be able to identify about themselves that I think I value logic and data more than I do emotions and beliefs. Or most people would know it about themselves that I think I prefer to spend my free time doing things on my own rather than going out with a group of people. So all characteristics fall on a spectrum, but the INFJ is like the wild card. Even though every INFJ is different as a collective whole, they are probably the ones who fall really close in the middle of the spectrum with any personality characteristic. So even though they are introverts, they probably fall a little closer to the extrovert side of the spectrum than the average introvert would. And then even though they are feelers, they would probably fall a little bit closer to the thinking side of the spectrum than the average feeling type would. So in a world where everything is black and white and all shades of gray, the INFJ are the grayest. They're neither too much of this nor too much of that, and they themselves don't really know which side of the fence they're on. And why is this? So as I always say in my videos, the answers lie within our cognitive functions. So let's talk about our cognitive functions and why our particular cognitive stack makes us these walking, talking contradictions. As I always say in my videos, INFJs are introverted intuition dominant. So how does this cognitive function contribute to us being paradoxical individuals? Well, introverted intuition is concerned with seeing the bigger picture and seeing patterns between ideas and how all of those things are related. We want to be able to see and know everything as a whole unit. So this can make us detached, and when I say that, I don't say it in a bad way. When I say detached, I mean we don't cling too strongly to one situation or another. We don't cling too strongly to the specific details of a situation, and we don't cling too strongly to the facts of the situation. We don't cling too strongly to the emotions that may be evoked from a situation. We like to collectivize all of the things associated with a situation, condense it, and then ask ourselves the question, what does the sum of all these things mean? What does it indicate? What are the implications of it? So what does it mean for my future or the future of society? That's a lot of questions, right? And some pretty loaded questions. So the next time you're wondering why INFJs ponder so much, now you know. So because INFJs try to look at everything in this detached manner from a bird's eye view perspective, this will cause INFJs to be really open-minded. So we see all sides to things. We see the good and the bad of this side as well as that side. We see that things are all shades of gray and that nothing is black and white. So because we know this information and because we know that a lot of things are not definitive and things change based on how you look at it and perceptions are variable and subjective, we try not to believe in something unless we know it is like the truth, unless we have looked at it from every single angle and we know that it is what we know that it is. And we know that there are not a lot of those truths in life. So some people enjoy being able to identify with a group or like a set of beliefs, like a religion or a status or an organization, and they enjoy being around people who support their beliefs or who share their status, or they look to these things to give them guidance on how they should behave or how they should see the world, or it helps them to be able to understand their function in the world. And this will in turn help them to see like how the world sees them. And there is comfort in knowing that you belong somewhere, and this is why people can get polarized towards one dichotomy or another. And some people will say, like, I'm of this political affiliation now, therefore I believe this, this, and this, and if you are of the other political affiliation, then you are therefore bad, and I will therefore not want to associate with you. So INFJs, like, we don't get that. Like I said, like, we prefer not to get like zoomed in on details. We prefer to have a detached, unbiased, broad bird's eye view of everything so that we can know a little bit of something about everything. A little from this side, a little from that side, and then we can compare and contrast it all so we know everything is not all good or bad. So we are pretty open-minded individuals and very unopinionated. So people will look at the INFJ and be like, oh, you guys are so dull. Like, you guys have no personality. You guys have no beliefs and you stand for nothing. And while yes, I guess those are some of the cons of being open-minded and unopinionated, but we don't really want to identify with anything. We just want the heart of things, and we just want the impersonal, unbiased, honest truth, separate from how we may feel or how we may think. Like, we don't want to be a player, we don't want to be a judge, we want to be the referee. I said in my previous video, Beautiful Things About INFJs, that INFJs just have this like childlike thirst for truth and for meaning. And while most people are wandering the earth looking for things that support their beliefs, INFJs are the opposite, because we aren't looking for things that support our beliefs, but we are looking for things to believe in. We can't just be sold on anything. It has to be something that is actually true. So the next time you're like, why are INFJs so bland? They're neither this nor that. They're neither hot nor cold. So the reason why is because INFJs don't identify too strongly with one thing or another, because they understand that there are pros and cons to all sides, and they want to be able to be flexible and adjust their character as circumstances change. So let's talk about our secondary cognitive function, our extroverted feeling, and how this function also contributes to us being paradoxical individuals. So extroverted feeling means that the INFJ is concerned with making decisions based on the feelings of others. So it's easy to see why INFJs can be so wishy-washy, for lack of a better term. So if their friends want to go to this restaurant, they're like, cool. If their friends want to go to that restaurant, they're like, let's do it. They just want to keep up the social harmony for their environment. They're not trying to rock the boat. They want everyone to be happy and feel good. And then because INFJs, because they have introverted intuition and they can kind of dissect situations and see like what's going on beneath the surface, and they can see future trajectories based on current patterns of events, then they enjoy using their introverted intuition to do extroverted feeling things. Like they will like to counsel people because they're very understanding and very helpful. They're very nice and very caring. People think INFJs have to be extroverts, but what they don't see about us is that we get very overstimulated being around people. So paradoxically, we seem extroverted, but deep down we are true introverts at heart. So now let's talk about our tertiary function, our introverted thinking. So where introverted thinking comes in third in our cognitive stack, this is where our child function is. So we are not good at using this function, but we enjoy using it and playing with it like a child. So INFJs love to learn information. We are very fascinated by information. We enjoy learning about how the world works and how the things within the world works. We like interacting with information just for the sake of interacting with it. We love like researching and like reading books and watching documentaries. So INFJs do have a tendency to have this mental database of information, and we are very capable of behaving like an ISTP or an INTP would. Like we know facts, we know the logic, we can analyze a situation from the root up and make very logical and practical decisions. Like, I think I can surprise my ISTP husband with how logical I can be sometimes. So even though INFJs are usually thought to be these really warm and sentimental, emotional people, we are actually quite logical and analytical. I actually think I can say this for myself, and I'm not sure if this is true of all INFJs, but I think a lot of INFJs might be able to relate to this. But when it comes to making decisions that will impact others, I use my extroverted feeling. But when it comes to making decisions for myself, I will often use my introverted thinking. So when all of my friends want to go to a restaurant that's pricey and far away, I'm just like, sure, why not? You know, do what makes the group happy, do the FE thing. But when it's just me, I'm like, I'm doing the TI thing. I'm going somewhere cheap to save myself some money, and I'm not going anywhere that is outside of a 5-mile radius of my house to save myself some time and gas. As for our last cognitive function, our extroverted sensing, I don't think we are too paradoxical when it comes to this one, because all INFJs just flat out know we just suck at the SE thing. There's no question about it. If you asked us, are we introverted or extroverted? Are we thinking or feeling? I feel like we'd answer those with a little less certainty, but we would answer with a lot of certainty that we are definitely intuitives and not sensors. But even with regard to extroverted sensing, we are still a little paradoxical. For INFJs who don't really know themselves, like if you ask them, do you think you're a pretty down-to-earth person? We'd be like, yeah, I think I'm a pretty, down-to-earth person. I'm pretty easygoing and pretty chill. And, yes, we can be very calm, but then again, INFJs always have like a whirlwind of thoughts. We are always feeling conflicted, and we hate physically exerting ourselves. So we think we are easygoing, but I actually believe that INFJs act really calm most of the time, because we are actually just compensating. We know that when we physically exert ourselves, like when we decide to get started on a task, we know that we go all in. We do things to perfectionism or not at all. So since we get really worked up when we are worked up, when we're not worked up, then we compensate otherwise by being super chill, super calm, super mellow. So we are like 0 or 100, and there's no in between. So even with our weakest function, our extroverted sensing, we are still quite paradoxical. So now you know why we are paradoxical. Look out for part 2 of this video, where I will talk about how we are paradoxical. So thanks so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.